Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm your host, Michelle White, and thank you for tuning in to Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. This evening we have Carrie Leon Jackson, and he is, well-known podcast host among other things around the world, and so he is our guest for this evening, and we're so happy to have him. And before we get started, we like to tell a little information about things that are happening in the community and so forth. So we're going to share a couple things with you, but then I also want you to go to my Facebook page, Michelle Turner White, and there are many things posted there where you can get information about what's happening in the city. And it is one of the things I'm going to tell you about is every day I'm turning around looking here about water. The water is just bad here. There's lead in the pipes. There's this, that, and the other. There's too much in the landfills. It's affecting our water. And I share it all the time. You can get your own water sent to your house for pennies, alkaline water, spring water, whatever you choose. And there's a very sleek water system with Ready Refresh. And you can call 248-798-0232. Have it sent to your door for pennies. Fresh water, 5 gallons each per. I love it. The number is 248-798-0232. And so some of the other things that, again, there's several things that are happening this month, and you can catch them all on my Facebook page at Michelle Turner White on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram as well. So there's a live jazz in the grass at Word Encounter Church this August the 26th. There is an environmental technician career worker training program. It is on, just check it out on my Facebook page. I can't see all the details, but there's many things about training programs coming up. School is starting everywhere across the land. This is August. Go and start registering for whatever training program that you want to do. You can start registering now. There are HVAC programs. Again, this is on my Facebook page, Michelle Turner White. But just many different things. There's a lot of school giveaways for the bags and so forth, backpacks. And I've posted all that information on Facebook and on Instagram, Michelle Turner White, so check it out. But this evening, because I said we have Carrie Leon Jackson, who is our host this evening, and he is going to be sharing with us some of the wonderful things that he is doing now, one of which he is always has been, but for many years, but I don't know how many know that he is a real estate mogul. And he's going to share some things about real estate as well as podcasting and some of the things that he has done to be so successful in podcasting. Carrie, I'm using my phone more now because I was using paper, and somebody said, don't use paper. But it's a challenge all the time to bring a lot of this stuff up quickly, but I'm getting there. What did you used to do to bring up information?
Especially you and I, prior to the show starting, we're talking about how Minister Malik Shabazz is doing.
Yes.
I told you that the news last night indicated that he just had heart surgery, but he would regularly send me things moments before I went on the air, and I would not have had an opportunity to print those things out. I would have preferred to have printed those things out so that they'd be big and in front of me.
Right.
I know that folks will always tell you, oh no, all of these devices now, you should use all of the devices. Listen, I'm old school.
Me too.
I need to be able to see it, and I can't, if it's really, really small, I can't read it right then.
Right.
So, like, y'all need to send it to me so that I have enough time to print it out, or else I'm going to sit there and try to read it off of one device while talking into another device. That just didn't work.
Well, again, we've got, did I say this is Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts?
Right.
You're watching us right now, live, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. And please don't forget to like, follow us, share, comment, subscribe, and thank you for watching WJZZ, the coolest TV station in the world. So we thank you for tuning in, and when we open up the phone lines, we want you to give us a call at 313-355-6018. Again, that's 313-355-6018. So, Mr. Jackson here is also a lawyer. He was a former district court judicial magistrate, a trial lawyer, and a talk show host with over 35 years of political experience. He's known as the urban conservative, and he often shares his unique opinion, and for the last 12 years has run the Eagle Advisory Group, providing strategic advisory counsel and real estate finance advice to America's small businesses. And so again, Mr. Kerry Leon Jackson, we thank you for being our guest this evening.
Thank you for inviting me and hosting me tonight. I'm enjoying being your guest. And I'm sitting there listening as you read the bio and thinking, I did all of that stuff? Well,
yes.
Let me just say this part up front. Both Regina and Pam have been good supporters of me during the 7 years that I was at 910 AM Superstation. I'm no longer at 910 AM Superstation, and I'm not going back, no matter what happens or who says what in the future. Listen, things happen for a reason. It's time to move on, and it's time to move forward. Since I left the station a couple of weeks ago, there have been a large number of you who love and care about me, because one of the things we're going to talk about is building the audience. And when you build an audience, you need to know that you've got to be loyal to them. Those folks are going to look for you to be there. They want you to be regular. If it's going to be once a week on Wednesdays, if it's going to be once a week on Saturdays, whenever you tell them you're going to be there, you got to show up. It's the most important thing, no matter what else is going on in the world, no matter what your kids are doing, or if the in-laws are in town or whoever, your audience wants you there when they want you there. And so
I know I certainly missed you, listening to you every morning.
And those folks and the other thing is, I mean, for regular listeners, they know for the last year I hadn't had the support that I'd had previously. There were plenty of mornings. Some mornings I used to have it. There would have been an engineer. Some mornings there were no engineer. It was just, it was clear, the writing was on the wall, that my show never was promoted the way that some of the other shows are promoted.
Well, it needed to have been.
And so it was up to me to do it all on my own. And even though 910 does not pay to get the ratings, every other radio station in town does. And then they would send them to me and say, look at what you're doing from 6 to 7 in the morning. So we were doing well. I was happy with the slot, but I was only happy because I had the opportunity to talk to you and other folks. I got an offer about 6 months ago to do a national show, but it was not that sort of show. It wasn't the type of show that would allow me to talk to my audience on a regular basis. They wanted me to do sort of what we're doing here, which is set up interviews and sit and interview people. And I can't tell you that I'm not going to do that in the future. I can just simply tell you that did not sound like the right opportunity at that time. I've still got...
Well, even with these types of shows, you can have people call in, but then your callers, you always had people call. It was interactive on a constant basis throughout the whole show.
I enjoyed the interactive part. Yes. I enjoyed being able to talk to people. And
we want some of your callers to call in here tonight at 313-355-6018. Now, you mentioned Regina. Regina, unfortunately, my co-host, Dr. Regina Hall, was not able to be with us this evening, and you all have long history, and she certainly wanted to be here, but was not able to. And you mentioned Pam. Were you talking about Pam Perry?
Well, no, the other Pam is Peachy.
Oh.
I'm not supposed to say her name, Pam.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But
you all were all friends.
We were all friends.
Okay.
She did a wonderful event at the beginning of the week with several of the local police chiefs, and with the sheriff.
Oh, the gun violence.
Yeah.
I saw
That thing.
Yes.
That event was packed.
Yes. I
Sheriff
wish I had
Ray
have known
Washington
about
was
that.
there.
I would have attended that
And
as well.
she had only had one opportunity to say it on my show
Oh.
before the show ended. And
Now we can talk about that tonight
I'd almost
too, 'cause
forgotten
I
about
like
it.
some of that info because gun violence is a problem.
Gun
Huge
violence
problem.
is a problem. We can talk about it now. The one thing that everybody needed to have taken from that event and all of the other events is parents, you need to raise your kids. Period.
And stop trying to be their friend, be their parent.
My parents were not. Listen, my mother and I talk at least once a day, every day. And still to this day, there is a clear-cut line between who. And I'm about to turn 60 this year,
But you
so
still
you know
the
she's in
child.
the 80s, and I know and respect. And you pay respect to those folks that you're supposed to respect in the community,
Exactly.
and no matter how grown you get. And there are a lot of folks that have just decided, hands off, I'm not taking any part in that. And unfortunately, that's where our community has gotten to where it is now. And I mean, one of the things that I do when I drive around the city every day, I got you.
Sorry.
So that's okay.
Lord.
I know. So one of the things that I see when I drive around the city now, I am just amazed that there are parts of the city where you can drive where every single house has the heavy steel gate and bars on the window, and then there are other parts of the city where you can drive to and you don't see those things. There are other and that all you've got to know is it's
That's by design.
I don't know that it's
Yeah, it
the
is.
thing
Did you see
is
the movie
there are
13th?
I've seen all of that, but understand this: in order for it to be in where you've got two totally different neighborhoods, blocks down the street from each other, it all depends on the citizens. Do they feel safe on this block, on that block, and why would the people in the same community 4 blocks over feel so much safer with just putting a camera up and having an alarm system, and they don't need those sort of storm doors? You know,
I've wondered about that too.
there are things in our community where everybody's just said, I'm going to mind my own business and everything's hands off. And if we want the sort of community where we're all safe and everybody comes and goes and we all share and working and everything together, we've all got to pay attention. Everybody's got a responsibility. You can't just throw things away the way everybody's been doing in the past.
Well, DeAndre Ford just said, "What's up, Carrie?"
Good morning, D.I. Why did I say good morning? Good evening. I'm not usually sitting in front of a microphone in the evening, so if you hear me make a couple of slips, like saying good morning, that's it. But
Because you're used to early morning.
I'm used to early morning,
Yeah.
but what I'm working on right now is trying to shift my body. I need to get back to the point where I can sleep past 4, 5, 6 in the morning, sleep until at least about 7, and then get up and have a full day.
Okay. So let's talk about, before we're going to talk about real estate, but let's talk about podcast hosting and, how did you build your audience? You were on the radio or doing radio and podcasting for 30-something years, 30 plus years?
No. So I had never went to school to be a radio host. I never studied for it. I never anticipated it happened. This is just one of those things that you've got to say, when God decides you're going in a direction, you better go in the direction you're pointed in. One Saturday morning, Vonda Evans, who is a very good
Judge
friend of
Vonda.
mine, we went to law school together. She
Yeah.
called and asked me to come join her on a Saturday morning to do her show at 9:10. She wanted to talk about some things that our former Governor Snyder had, some moves that he had made as it related to Flint and the water, and she needed somebody who was a Republican who would come in and defend him.
Okay.
Let's be clear with your audience right now before we go any further. I am no longer a member of that party, so don't call in talking
'Cause I
about
heard that,
you got
you know.
that Republican there. I left those people several years ago. Those folks,
Well,
that
a lot
part.
of our listeners are also Republican, and we have a combo of listeners.
A lot of people in our community, in the black community, have conservative values that we got from church
Yes.
and from our parents.
Yes.
That does not mean that they ever want to be a member of the party that's full of racists right now. So
They don't look at it that way.
they
Some of them.
they still have those views, And I mean, and those are the same. I'm amazed. Listen, I said this over and over again before, and I'll say it now. They can charge Donald Trump with 30 crimes if they want to. Those folks who are lined up and going to be supportive of him are going to be supportive of him. We can't worry about that. You've got to worry about, getting the message through and getting out the vote for the other people in the country, the ones who don't follow him and who don't believe that stuff. He's got a very large group of people who will do whatever he wants them to do, including showing up and breaking windows at the Capitol and attack everybody else. Those are his supporters. Those are going to be his supporters. There's a lot of other people in America that don't believe that way. And those are people that, I prefer to talk to, and hopefully you talk to.
So tell us how you build your audience on broadcasting with your broadcast history.
Listen, I would spend every day, every evening. I know several friends of mine that are still at my former station who, when they got their shows, they called me and said, how do you do it? Where do you get the topics from and everything? Talk about whatever's in the news, whatever everybody else is talking about. If you work in an office, people are going to come to you and talk to you about stuff. You talk about current events with folks. I always saw it as my job to make sure that I had enough of a topic to get the party started in the morning, and you would listen and many other folks listen. They went and there, you could always start it off one way, and then it's going to take one phone call that's going to take it in an entirely different direction. Just be prepared to roll with wherever it goes, and let folks call and say what's on their mind. One thing that I learned many years before I had my own radio show is, I never knew that these lessons would come handy later on. One is be loyal to your audience because they expect it of you. They expect be truthful with them.
How do you get them to call in? A lot of times people will listen, but they won't always call.
There are a lot of folks who will listen and will never pick the phone up and call.
Exactly.
But there are a lot of folks who want to talk. And the entire point, the FCC, if you ever bothered to go to any one of the hearings, and I did years ago, long before I even thought that I'd ever be on the radio, their purpose is to get Americans to talk, to exercise your free speech right.
And for those of you who want to talk right now, we got the one and only Carrie Leon Jackson right here. Feel free to call us at 313-355-6018. Again, you're watching us on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. So call in. The man is right here. You don't have him on 910 or anywhere else right now, but he's right here on Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. So feel free to call us at 313-355-6018 and talk to Carrie.
So one of the things that I did is to make sure that I was just open and honest with everybody. This is what we're going to talk about, or this is what I'm going to try to talk about. But the show always belongs to the people. The license always belongs to the people anyway. And so you've got to give folks, even those that you might think are crazy, that you might disagree with, some of them that you might think are racist.
It would be humorous hearing how you would navigate through some of the people that might be some of those things you just mentioned.
Right. That was the trick. That's the whole trick, is to mix it in. You've got to give people a reason to tune in. So you've got to learn to mix the different voices.
And you had good topics to discuss.
I try to have a good topic, but the truth is, I said, there are shows that I honestly, the very second that I'd wrap up at the end of the day, would get up and say, nobody talked about the topic. No, and that, I got to tell you, happen more often than not.
Yes. Because they just like talking. It gave them an avenue to talk.
And that's the thing. Once they start talking, you just got to let them go. I tell people all the time that when I was hosting, my only job was to answer the phone, period. Because there were those, I don't know if you remember, those that would call and say, well, you let that person go on and you let them have all of this time. And I'd say, if you want that kind of time, you need to call at the top of the hour. Because as we get later into the hour, there's a lot more people calling, and I got to try and, move folks along and move things along and give a lot more people a chance to be heard.
And then you provided a venue for people to share events, because certainly with our Lions Club International recycling furniture donation, giveaway, that helped, the exposure helped tremendously. I think I mentioned to you that just on the 15th of July, we had over 200 people that came out, and we advertised under a lot of different avenues, but yours was one of the main one where we got immediate response from people either having items to donate or needed items to, and we gave away couches, beds, living room sets, dining room sets, all kind of very nice items. We didn't take junk. Pots, pans, you name it, dishes, we gave it away. And that was the key, to not charge people, but give those items away.
And
because there's so many people in need.
There's so many people in our community who need, and they don't have a clue where to go get it.
Yes.
They might not have credit, so they can't go open up, a credit line and buy
everybody
furniture.
Doesn't even have money to go to the Salvation Army or other places like that. And I'm not knocking that. That's an excellent organization.
Right.
But everybody doesn't have that money either. So your show gave Venue, an opportunity to build that too.
Look,
Thank you.
I learned myself. It was hosting that show and being at the station for 7 years was a learning experience about clearly the power of radio, period.
Yes.
You could always believe that, you're talking to these people here, and you'd find out that there were so many other people that were tuned in. I mean, not a day goes by still where I don't hear from somebody, says, I tuned into your show, I regularly listen, and it's like, and these are people who never called, who would never call, but
they were listening all the time.
They were still listening all the time.
I literally went around to 4 to 5 different avenues trying to reach your show. And it wasn't that I couldn't have called you and said anything, but I was trying to just find it on my own. Someone saw that, I don't know who, I don't remember the person right now, and they texted me and gave me the information.
So there's always people out there who are listening, and they're looking for content. They're looking for you to.
Well, I
fill
hope you
in
come
their
back
day.
some kind of way, however you choose to do it, because you provided an excellent show, excellent venue for people. And like you said, I know you have many other opportunities. I'm sure your phone is clamoring with people saying, hey, we want you to come over here. You can do it this way or do it that way.
There are plenty of opportunities that people have presented.
You're taking a rest right
I'm not just. That's my thing. I'm not saying that I don't want to do it, because I do want to keep in touch with folks.
Yes.
My co-host Keisha and I have discussed something that if we actually wind up getting it off the ground, everybody will be a lot more impressed and they'll be a lot happier. But those things take time.
Yes.
I really don't want. I mean, as I started saying earlier, me hosting the show at 9:10 started out from a phone call from Vonda saying, "Come help me." At the end, I got invited back the next week, and then eventually got my own show.
That's kind of how it happened with me.
There.
I was in a Zoom meeting, and someone heard me say that I would like to do a podcast, and they invited me to come be a guest with them. And next thing I know, they're not here anymore, and I'm here.
See? And that was the thing. The day that Vonda left, I got a call from the station owner, and he said, "You've been hanging out with her. You've been doing good. You want to keep that slot?
Yeah.
Or I'll fill it with somebody else." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to keep the slot."
Yes, yeah.
And then, I was on Saturdays for a while, and then he moved me to mornings. And he moved me to mornings because Steve Hood and I, and Steve was a very long friend of mine. And so when Steve was unable to do his 6 o'clock show, he'd always call me. And since I had filled in for him several times, they decided, "Oh, Kerry, you'll be a good fit at 6 in the morning." And they gave me the equipment to broadcast from home because I had a child I needed to get ready to get to school.
Right.
And that show just took off. And, but again, it wasn't me. I don't have a magic formula. It wasn't my stick. It was the people.
Yeah.
And I would listen to them and let them, whether everybody agreed or not, you let the folks talk. You let them have the say. That's the void. They want you to feel their need is they need to talk. And as long as you give them the opportunity to talk and just, give them an opportunity. Some of them, you got to, when you put them on, you got to be ready and say, uh-oh. You tell your engineer, be ready. You might have to cut him off because some of them are going to say some stuff and they're going to go in an area you might not be comfortable with.
Right.
But other ones, you'd be like, okay, that was a great show. I'm glad that those folks called because they shared. And the most important thing is getting the audience to share. And So those folks that are never going to call, accept the fact that they're never going to call. Other folks are going to call, and you've got to, feed them, let them go.
Yeah.
Give them a little bit of rope, and they will go and go and go.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. And I'm surprised more people haven't called in just yet, just to talk to you and hear your voice. I mean, they're hearing your voice, but feel free to call in, bring up a topic just like you do when Carrie is normally on, because like you said, they didn't always go with the topic you might have initially started with. So if you're listening now, you can feel free to call us here, 313-355-6018. Again, this is Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts, and you can see us on our Facebook pages, the Wjzz Cool TV Facebook page, YouTube, or all the many streaming platforms. And so someone else has commented and said, "Hey Carrie, miss you."
I will at some point. We'll be able to fill that void for the folks who miss us,
Yes.
who miss having a show on. But I just need to. I mean, if y'all listened earlier to Michelle, you heard her say mogul. Mogul means that I've made it to the level where I want to be in the real estate industry, and I'm not there yet. I've gotten close.
But I was just speaking life.
And
So you
I
got to
appreciate
speak
her
it
speaking life
That's
into
right. It's
it.
coming. It's
But
coming.
I'll share with y'all what I shared with her. These last 2 years since I got freed from the marriage after the divorce, I've been having a lot of fun. I have not been concentrating my time, energy, and effort on my real estate business the way I need to, the way I've done in the past, the way I know that I can. And that's because, I've been falling back on I had this broken up day. I had to get up I'd always wake up at, before 4 o'clock in the morning, something like 3:45, something. You'd wake up and do the things you do first thing in the morning and get prepared for a show. And the show was always lively from 6 to 7. And so at 7:05, I was back in the bed. And I used to sleep until 10 o'clock, sometimes till 11 o'clock, and then get up, go take a shower, and try to start my day. But by 11 o'clock, I've lost a good chunk of real money-making time. There are only so many hours of the day that are money-making hours.
I'm sure you had many events that you had to attend.
And there were things that and so, now what I really need to do is get my body clock back to the point of a normal human being where I sleep all of the way through the night, get up, jump in the shower, whether I get up at 7 or 7:30, then I can start my day.
So if people want to reach you, they need a real estate agent because you are your own broker. And how can they reach you?
313-658-3700, 313-658-3700. And as Michelle is listed, all of the platforms at Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, where you can reach them on all of those platforms. Now, I'm not on Twitch. I know absolutely nothing about Twitch, but I am. You can find me under my name, Carrie Leon Jackson, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what's the other one? TikTok, pretty much every social network out there. You can reach me under my own individual name, Carrie Leon Jackson.
All right. So you are a commercial real estate broker as well as a
so let me tell you this.
I said it
You meant
earlier.
residential.
Residential and commercial, right?
So let me tell you, everybody who can hear our voice right now, the bar to get a real estate license in Michigan is pretty low. All you got to do is be 18, no felonies, and hopefully by the time when you're 18, you have no felonies. So they've got to prove that you're
a lot
good.
of people are getting their records expunged. They're doing
They
a
can
lot
get
of
their
that.
record expunged, but they want you to have good moral character. So you've got to be 18, take the class, pass the class and the test, and you can get a real estate salesperson's license and later on a broker's license. So that's why the one thing that I tell folks all of the time, there's at least one real estate salesperson on every single block in the city of Detroit. Everybody's got a cousin, a sister, or brother, or somebody who they dabble in real estate. I've done this for over 40 years. I took my first real estate class when I was 17. They wouldn't let me take the test until I was 18 in Illinois. And so I can tell you 40 years ago in 83, I was working as a paralegal doing real estate stuff. I was doing real estate closings. I had to go down to the county building and pull the actual books and do title searches the old-fashioned way, because y'all know 40 years ago we didn't have an internet and computers in our pocket.
You probably had microfiche.
Microfiche was coming. There was
wasn't even
stuff
out
that
yet.
was on microfiche, but and that used to also be nice. You can go and pull the film, put it on the little roller, watch it, and then tell the librarian I need this page or that page or whatever. So I've been around a very long time, and so I've seen a lot of things. I had decided probably right around the time that we had the market turn down in 2009 and 2010 that I wanted to do more commercial. So I left. I previously was at Bowers Realty, doing residential. Left there and
my
went
parents
to.
used to work for Bowers.
And most black brokers in this town can trace their roots through having gone through Ms. Bowers' firm.
Now, someone said they just called and it went right to voicemail. So please try to call again at 355-6018. That's area code 313-355-6018. I'm sorry, go ahead. So you
okay.
worked at Bowers.
Worked at Bowers. I left there and went to KW Commercial out in Ann Arbor for a while. Actually wound up being a couple of years because I wanted to get more knowledge, more commercial knowledge, and start to put together a base. I left there and went to a firm called Marcus and Millichap, which is an international commercial real estate brokerage. Stayed there for a year, but one of the things that I learned there, this is what we talked about off air beforehand. Unfortunately, race and the issue of race enters into pretty much every single thing that we do. And if somebody gets an opportunity to say, "Oh well, you're competing for this business and I'm competing for this business," they will go behind your back and go to the clients and say, "But don't work with him because he's black." And so I had, unfortunately, a lot of business deals that I'd worked up and gotten to the point of moving them down the road so that this could close. And then you find out that for some reason, one reason or another, the rug was pulled off and under me. I knew that race had a lot to do with it, but I'm going to tell you something. It took my son as a way. He sat down and he said, "Daddy, maybe they're not just doing it just because you're black. Maybe they're doing it because you're making money that they want to make." And it made so much sense. And he was right. There was more of an opportunity. It was a money thing. It was, folks, when you're dealing with commercial deals, there are so many opportunities. Not only, people will tell you this, "Oh my God, once the check comes in, the check is so much larger than a standard little residential check." It is. But it takes a year, maybe 2 years, to actually get that deal to the point of closing. And I've never had
For commercial deals.
And I've never had one deal where once it got to that point and everybody was actually looking at the numbers, where I didn't get a call from one side or the other to say, "We're sure paying you a whole lot of money. You need to cut your fee some." That happens all the time, every single day. So, I've learned even, within the last 10 years that there's a lot of things that not to try and do it all myself, and I'm not going to get every single deal, and to not be afraid to work with people. You've got to split that fee with 4 or 5 other people if you want to wind up getting the business.
Exactly.
And
that's fine, because then you'll get other clients.
I get other business from them.
Exactly.
And so as long as I got to tell you something, 20 years ago, Carrie, when I was practicing law all the time, I would never have done any of that stuff. I was always hungry to try and do it all myself, and I wanted to make all of the money, and I didn't.
But collaboration has always been one of the keys to help us go further. Whether you're getting a grant, whether you're closing a business deal, whatever it is, that's one of the challenges that people have, and particularly people of color, even when we start a business. If we all bought the same, if we're all doing a business that needs the same widgets, the same forks, the same nail products,
Right.
the same whatever, if we purchase it together, we're going to get it for a lot less than if we just do it all ourselves. But
Right.
we were also talking about how the industry, in many urban areas, in particular, like even the Detroit, Michigan area where we are, that they're blocking there are powers that be there that are even blocking some of the ability.
So I'm going to tell y'all on the air what Michelle and I talked about earlier. I've had some clients lately who were looking to buy, who, they had the finances, so money wasn't the issue. They wanted to buy in some of the more exclusive parts right here in the city of Detroit. They wanted to come back into the city. And the standard way it works now, I mean, if you've got a client that wants to see house number 123 on Brown Street, you go online, you schedule a showing, you take your client, you walk through the house, they see it, and then they decide, pretty much they need to make an offer then, because houses don't stay on the market that long. And I've had some experiences where the second or within moments after I'd scheduled a showing of the house, I mean, the listing agent has the opportunity to look at and either approve your showing or not approve your showing. And I've had some that were canceled. And I mean, normally sometimes they've got a legitimate reason to cancel it, such as the house already has a deal on it.
But it was becoming too much.
When it's happening several times in a row, makes you wonder why. And then one day it happened back to back on a house in North Rosedale Park. And so I got in my car and I drove over there. It was a Sunday. And I got in the car and I drove over and I saw that the only people, the skin color of the families that they were letting see the house, all happened to be in one color, and none of them were black. And so I thought, Carrie, you really can't. This can't be happening. You know better than that.
It's 2023.
2023. We shouldn't have this going on. No.
Right.
Don't jump to conclusions. And then I talked to a friend of mine who's handled a lot of housing discrimination type issues, particularly here in the Metro Detroit area. And when I was telling her about what happened, and I'd scheduled another one with a different agent, still in that same North Rosedale, and it happened again. She said, well, you've got to wind up reporting this, because, and I said, I don't believe this. This is it's 2023.
Exactly.
There are laws against this kind of stuff. These folks cannot be openly, blatantly saying, he's black. He's bringing black people over here. I'm not going to let him show the house. That can't be happening. And it happened, and she said, it's not just happening to you. There are other people that you, in order to wind up getting it done, you're going to wind up having to report it. I was like, this was this year, this was a few months ago, and we're having problems with folks that have decided, oh no, we are going to save these pieces of property in this community for other folks, and we're not going to even show it to let you go and show it to your client. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It had nothing to do, and I mean, that was the thing. Yeah. If I understand when a listing broker calls, a listing agent calls and says, but is your person already pre-financed? How much they approved? Have you send me over the documents to prove? Yeah, that's fine. I want to show you we're ready to go. This is a legitimate offer, that sort of thing. Nowadays, because you're going to get multiple offers, you've got to be able to prove you're ready to go. You're ready to close on the deal.
And this isn't just happening in our state. It's happening in many states that are progressive.
And I got to tell you that to me, because I always hold this, people are good inside my heart, and you thinking that really can't be happening. And to have seen it happen, to be slapped in the face with it happening, it's one of these things to say, we legitimately have just lost the last 50 years worth of progress, and we're starting all over again.
Well, I think I was telling you that also, and I'm sure with the audience, that many years ago I used to sell ATM machines. And so I had attended the land developers meeting that was held at the Detroit Athletic Club. And there were only maybe 10 people of color in a room of over 500 land developers. And they said out of their mouth, they did not bite their tongue, because they knew that the 10 people
they were comfortable who they were talking.
Comfortable,
right.
Very comfortable. They said the blacks are doing exactly what we want them to do. Everything is still, the plan is still underway. And at that time, they were trying to impeach Archer for some stupid something. He didn't have enough toilet paper in the school, something silly. And that's another thing that we do. Too often we're arguing and not looking at the bigger picture. And Archer would try to tell them that you can't. You've got to think globally. We sit on the waterway, and you've got to get your contracts, and so that you could partner with some of these larger companies, Showstack, Turner, or all the other large land developers. And people were saying, "Oh no, I'm not," because Archer used to hold town hall meetings, which I encourage all the people that's come. Well, it's a different ball game right now with the mayors in the city of Detroit. So, but he does hold some type of meetings. He Zoom meetings and some.
He goes Zoom meetings, or he goes to. I mean, but there's politicians all over have always done that. Is if they're going to go into a room, they want to be comfortable that they're going in a room with people who are their supporters. Mm-hmm. They don't really too often want to, and I'll tell you this, across the board, Democrats and Republicans, mm-hmm. if they're going to go into it's very rare that you're going to have them hold a public town hall where the folks are not screened beforehand. Mm-hmm. I'm not just talking about mm-hmm. screening for weapons. I'm talking about they've got to know that they're going into a friendly audience. Mm-hmm. And they, if they figure that they're going into an audience full of parents who are mad, like the Tea Party folks used to do, mm-hmm. that they're all mad and they're going to holler and scream at them the whole time, they generally shy away from doing those sort of things. Because of COVID, mm-hmm. And you've got more folks now using technology, whether it's Teams or Zoom or any of the video sharing type things, that they've got other ways that they can communicate with people to get their message out without being hollered and screamed at all of the time. And they probably want to take the easier route out.
Well, one of the things that with what you're experiencing in real estate just speaks to what I heard the land developers saying. There's been a 50-year plan to take back the city of Detroit all along. 50 years. And so it's what you're experiencing of not being able to, or pieces of land being held in particular areas, because that's not one area, it's several areas for people that they want, because they're building back up the city to take back the city. If you think about it, there were certain groups of people that had the city all along. Then a black mayor came in, and then the city was filled up with black businesses everywhere. Well, now they're taking it back. And if we're not careful, if we don't wise up, we need to be coming together as people of color, and so that we can get some of it and keep some of it. But we've got such a struggle with being able to do things together, because they are taking back the city.
Well, you're right. And if there's one message that I want your audience, my audience, anybody's audience to understand, we got to learn to work with each other.
Exactly.
And I mean, because the truth is, if in fact the folks who are already here in the community, mm-hmm. if they actually put their heads and their money together, mm-hmm. everything that they're complaining is being bought by outsiders, mm-hmm. they can buy and they can turn around. And I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of, in the last 2 years, mm-hmm. Because of the stuff that I do with real estate, mm-hmm. I've been inside of a lot of homes mm-hmm. inside the city. Mm-hmm. And I've been inside a lot of homes where I was sent out by the lender to check the place out. Mm-hmm. A lot of homes that have been bought by African Americans, renovated, and I mean they've turned. You would never know when you pulled up outside mm-hmm. how beautiful the home looks inside. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of suburban features inside the home, mm-hmm. and they've made it look a lot nicer than anything else looks on the block.
I was just in one the other day on the east side. They were giving us some donations. The place was gorgeous.
Gorgeous. And these are homes that have been fixed up by African Americans that bought one home, 2 homes, 3 homes, and they fixed them up.
And there are a lot of Asians buying a lot of the properties too.
Yeah.
They had to put a stop. Are you familiar with the nuisance abatement and repair to own programs? It used to be. I think they've shut one of them down with the city of Detroit. And you could get homes for $1.
Well, I know that they were getting homes for $1, and they were fixing them up and turning them over. The only problem is, what it's been my experience, they're not turning them. They're a lot. I don't want to say. I don't even need to be careful. They are a little quicker to discriminate against African Americans than even the white Americans.
But they put a stop to some of the program because too many Asians were coming and they saw that Detroit was a hot spot. And I went to that meeting too, and they said, we got to change this.
They had the money, so they'd come in and buy up every single thing that they wanted to.
All up.
And I mean, I've got to tell you, when I was just concentrating just on residential back in 09, 10, and 11, I sold a lot to them because, I mean, all that we cared about is you've got the cash, you want the property, nobody else is in your way to buy it. I'm going to close this deal, and we're going to go in and let you buy them. Then you look back a few years later and say, oh my God, look what happened. They bought up so much stuff. They now have a power base. You know, they hire a local management firm.
And
they're putting people in and
we
throwing
did
them out.
the same thing. But we need to start, this is just my opinion, we need to start living together. But there was a time when we did business together within our own communities. We lived within a certain vicinity of one another, and we built our power base because money talks, period.
You're right. And I mean, the most important thing that anybody needs to know before we run out of time is, did y'all just hear what Michelle White said? There once was a time. We've done it before.
Yes.
We've done it several times before. We can do it again.
Yes.
But you've got to be able to convince the folks that used to listen to me, will listen to me again in the future and listen to you now. You've got to convince them that they need to care enough about their community to make it a community where we all have a common goal. So that applies.
Somebody said we need to develop alliances.
I agree. I agree. That also goes for running for office. You know, you can't decide.
Did you say you're running for office?
No, I'm not running for office. I'm running to the bank. But when folks decide to run for office, things have changed. I mean, you know, I was born and raised in a political family, and folks ran because they had a constituency behind them. They had a group of people that said, I'm going to work night and day to get you. I believe you're the right person. I want to get you elected to that seat so that you can go and fight for all of us. That's really not what's been happening in our community, at least not right here in Detroit. We've got a lot of folks that just figure, I ain't got nothing else to do right now. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run for office. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I'm going to run for this seat or that one. And, you know, they might have 15 friends of theirs, and that's 15 votes that they're going to take away from somebody who legitimately was concerned and who had a constituency. And we've got to get back to the point where we all care about our own community, where we're all working again for a common goal, including with who's going to run, and let's all get behind that person and support.
And we really need to get the history of people that are running, because everyone, if I'm running, if whoever's running, they're going to say what you want them to say in front of whatever group you put them in front of. But that doesn't mean that they're going to really uphold what you think they might be wanting to support or uphold. Because they're just that's politics.
I agree, but you understand that even right here in the city where we're at right now, there used to be the folks that put out slates used to actually go out and interview candidates.
I'm trying to get somebody that does history on that to look. I'll type it up. Just put it together.
They used to actually do the work, because folks are like, listen, I got to get up. I got to be at work at 6 o'clock. I get off at 6 o'clock. I get home and cook. I ain't got time to look all of that up. Just, okay, somebody hand me that slate. Well, now when they're being handed a slate, they're being handed a slate of folks that nobody bothered to vet. You know, that person wrote a check. They put their name on it, and that was it. And nobody's done the work to find out whether the person whose name is there is actually going to be hardworking and things like that. So that means that you can't trust any individual slates. You've got to get out and say, I got to do all of this work myself. Again, you got to establish trust with somebody, and that also means those folks actually have to do their job. They've got to actually vet the candidates and say, no, we're not supporting you. You don't need to run right now. Or let's all get behind this candidate and make sure that our vote counts putting that person in the office.
And that is not what's happening, but it needs to happen.
That's what needs to happen.
People need to be vetted, really vetted, and the information needs to get out so that we can make proper decisions on the candidates that we're putting in office.
Well, y'all understand that that's why we've yeah, we might have lost 50 years worth of hard work in terms of building the community physically and I don't know if I want to say spiritually, but we can't turn it around. You just got to decide that you actually care enough about your community to want to do something about it, that you want to turn it around.
Somebody said, how do you think we can turn it around?
Let's start trusting your neighbors. Start on your own individual block. I say this all the time. Get to know your neighbors. You start on your block. Once you know the folks on your block and everybody on your block has a common goal, then start on the next block. And then start on the next block after that. Start going to PTA meetings. They give you a free opportunity. You've got an audience of parents there right then. Go to the PTA meeting. Join the PTA meeting. Do something in your community so that you can meet your neighbors and y'all can all work together.
That's so true. And we need to really help empower our young people and make sure that they're getting proper education, because that's our next generation. Those are the next politicians. Those are the next business owners, or not.
Well, you see what happens in Florida. They can decide there are things that we don't want to teach you, or we're going to deliberately, intentionally teach your kids lies. That's happening because there's not enough people in Florida that say, wait a minute, hold on. I'm going to these meetings and I'm going to say, no, you're not going to do that. If you don't get involved, folks that did get involved actually get to run things, and things will go their way. So you've got to actually get out of your house and go do something.
I saw a reel a couple of weeks ago, and for a particular group of a particular group of people, and they said, we're coming. They had a rally, and they were chanting, we're coming after your kids. We're coming after your kids. I was like, oh my goodness. But they are. They're coming after our kids. And so we have a responsibility to try to protect that. And but we're going to have you back again. We're going to be talking more about some of the things to help in our community, because I know that you have a true heart to want to help in our community and communities. And when we start at home, and then we can do things and share things to help so that other communities can also be can grow properly.
All right. I'll be back when you need me
physically. Back. Wonderful. So next week we're going to have Hill Harper will be on our show next week. So be sure and tune in right here to Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. And again, next week we're going to have Hill Harper, who is running for political office and has business in the city of Detroit, and as well as an actor and all the other things that he's doing.
So I'm going to tell you this. Before then, I will send you a copy of, or somebody from the campaign will send you a copy of, there's a 4-page brochure that tells all of the hard work and all of the volunteer things, all of the experience that he has. Because everybody, the folks that want you to vote for Alyssa Slotkin are going around telling you, don't vote for me, he ain't nothing but an actor. No, he has put, not just has he bought and he runs a business here and he's bought a home here, but he has put in work for our community for years, years and years. And once you actually get to find out what his real heart is and how much commitment he's made, you should make him the person you look at.
Well, he's our guest for next week. But tonight we thank
y'all
you.
Tune in next week.
Yes, right here on Wjzz Cool TV. And we thank you, Carrie, for coming to be our guest this evening. We look forward to having you come back again. And we want to hear your voice out there always.
I'll be here when you invite me.
All right, sir. Thank you again. Have a